My name is Christopher Cromer, and today I'm going to be teaching you about the theory of moral development. Specifically, we're going to be looking at Lawrence Kohlberg's theory of moral development. So let's dive right in. What is the theory of moral development? Well, the theory holds that moral reasoning, or the basis for ethical behavior, has 6 identifiable developmental stages, each more adequate at responding to moral dilemmas than its predecessor. So if we're going to talk about the way that morals develop, we should probably start off by talking about what is a moral. Well, a moral is a person's standard of behavior or their beliefs concerning what is and is not acceptable for them to do. What a person personally believes is right or wrong, and the way that they make that decision. Now, Kohlberg's theory of moral development is split into 6 stages, right? And each of these stages are progressive. One feeds right up into the next. They grow from each other. Right? And these six stages can be grouped into 3 levels of 2 stages each: pre-conventional, conventional, and post-conventional morality. Now, it's extremely rare for someone to regress in stages or to lose the use of high-stage abilities. Usually, once you've progressed to a new stage of development, it's very, very rare for you to go back to thinking the way you would before. Additionally, these stages can't really be skipped. Each one provides a new and necessary perspective, more comprehensive and differentiated than its predecessor, but integrated in with them. Each of these stages grows from one another. You move on to one stage, learn as a person, you experience new things, and then you grow on to the next stage. Now, we would start off with our first level, which would include 2 different stages, and that would be pre-conventional morality. Now, reasoners at this level would judge that morality of an action by its direct consequences. Okay? A child with pre-conventional morality has not yet adapted or internalized society's conventions regarding what is right or wrong, but instead, they focus largely on external consequences that certain actions may bring. So this would be more about what's happening to you, right? Something is right if you're rewarded, and something is wrong if you are punished. Now, that would bring us to stage 1, obedience and punishment-driven morality. Individuals focus on the direct consequences of their actions, at this stage. That means that it's all about the consequences. If you do something and you're punished, then that's morally wrong for you. It's a wrong thing to do, the wrong decision. If you do something and you're rewarded, it's the right decision. Now again, remember at this stage it doesn't matter what that action is. If you were to murder someone and you're rewarded for it, by the logic of the stage, that would be a morally right thing to do. A good example of this would be the last time I did that I got spanked, so I will not do it again, right? You were punished, so you're not going to do it again. Now the worse the punishment is for an act, the more morally bad or wrong that act is perceived to be. Again, regardless of what the actual act is. Now that would bring us over to stage 2, the self-interest driven stage. Now this expresses the what's in it for me position, in which right behavior is defined by whatever the individual believes to be in their best interest. Now this would be someone who is, regardless of their relationships, regardless of whatever's happening, they're going to do what's best for them, right? Picture a small child who wants a cookie, right? They don't care if that cookie's in their friend's lunchbox, they just know that they want the cookie. They're not thinking about that their friend will be mad at them or that they might lose that friend, right? They're only thinking about how good the cookie would make them feel. They're only thinking about their own self-interest. Now, that would end the pre-section, so we're going to move on to a little bit of discussion. Now, what I'd like you to do is to turn to your partner, or whoever might be with you, and think up your own example to demonstrate one of the first 2 stages of these moral development, either stage 1 or stage 2. Just think up an example that you think would work and take a moment to discuss that with your partner. And when you're done, we'll go ahead and move on. Next up, we would move from pre-conventional morality into conventional morality. Now, this is typical of adolescents and young adults, and usually it has to do with judging the morality of actions by comparing them to society views and expectations. This is in contrast to what we saw in stage 2, right, where we weren't really concerned about anybody else. It was all about us and what we wanted. In this one, however, we begin to take in the concerns and views of other people and society as a whole. Now, this is characterized by an acceptance of society's conventions concerning right and wrong. We begin to listen to what other people are saying and let them determine for us what is right or wrong. And that determines the actions that we take. Now, an individual obeys rules and follows society's norms even when there are no consequences for obedience or disobedience. We do it purely because of that social pressure. And adherence to these rules and conventions is somewhat rigid, and a rule's appropriateness or fairness is seldom questioned. Right? We see this example in a lot of laws. Take, for example, the marijuana laws that are going around right now. All right? Regardless of whether or not you believe that those are right or wrong, a person at this stage of morality would be against that because it's against the law. They would give in to the social pressures, if you will, and they would believe that it was a morally wrong decision. Now, after we move past stage 2 into the conventional morality, we go on to stage 3, which is good intentions as determined by social consensus. Now, the self enters society by conforming to social standards. We judge the morality of an action by evaluating its consequences in terms of a person's relationships, right? It's not just about what's good for me, it's about, is it good for me, will it hurt other people, right? Will it hurt my relationship with them? And this is when we begin to think of things like respect, gratitude, and the golden rule. Do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. Our whole perspective is getting broadened. A good example of this would be something like, I want to be liked and well thought of, right? Apparently, not being naughty makes people like me. If I'm not a jerk and people like me, then that makes me happier, right? So that must be the morally right thing to do. It's the right thing to do because everyone around me gives me that information. Now we move on from this into stage 4. Stage 4 is authority and obedience-driven social order. Now, in this one, we are concerned mainly with laws. It's important to obey laws, dictums, and social conventions because of their importance in maintaining and functioning society. Beyond the need for individual approval exhibited in stage 3. Okay? So, in this one, laws are important, not just to us, right, but to maintaining society as a whole. If something is against the law, that is wrong, regardless of what that thing might be. Which brings us back to that marijuana argument, if you will. This is something that we're seeing a lot. Okay? Now, if one person violates the law, perhaps everyone would. Thus, there is an obligation or a duty to uphold the laws and rules. You have a duty to maintain the laws in order to keep society functioning normally. If you violate the law, no matter what that law might be, whether it's severe or not severe, you are morally wrong. And most active members of society remain at stage 4. They usually don't move on to stage 5 or 6. Now, take a moment, if you will, and talk about what are some of the differences between the stages of conventional morality and pre-conventional morality. Right? What differences did you see between stages 1 and 2 and between stages 3 and 4? And why do you think we develop these changes in our moral outlook? So as we move on, we enter post-conventional morality. This is marked by a growing realization that individuals are separate entities from society, and that individuals' own perspectives may take precedence over society's view. Now, individuals may disobey rules inconsistent with their own principles. This is more like you're making the decision. There's the law, but you know in your heart what's right or wrong, so you make the decision of what to do. People who exhibit post-conventional morality view rules as useful but changeable mechanisms. Right? There are laws in place for a reason, but if that reason ceases to be, we can't adjust them or change them. They're not written in stone. Now, because post-conventional individuals elevate their own moral evaluation of a situation over societal social conventions, their behavior, especially at stage 6, it can be confused with those at pre-conventional level. Right? You're doing what you think is best for you. But really, you're just following your own code of justice and morality. That brings us to stage 5, social contract driven. This is where we're driven by a social contract. The world is viewed as holding different opinions, rights, and values, and such perspectives should be mutually respected as unique to each person or community. Now, laws are regarded as social contracts. We all agree to abide by them, so we do. A democratic government is ostensibly based on a stage 5 version of reasoning, right? We make rules for reasons. If those rules cease to be, we have the power to change them. Which sends us on to 6, universal ethical principle driven. All right? Now, this is where moral reasoning is based on abstract reasoning using universal ethical principles. Your own version of justice. What is just and what is not? At this level, you would have a very, very strong personal opinion about what you view as being morally correct or morally wrong. And you would act on those opinions, regardless of what the law says or regardless of what anybody else says. This is why it can often be confused with stage 2, doing what you want for you. The only difference is that in this version, you're actually doing it based on your own sense of justice and right and wrong. Now, for our final discussion, I'd like for you to take a moment, and now that we've learned about these 6 stages of moral development, think about, for yourself, and what level you think you might be on at this current moment in your life. What reasons led you to your determination? Can you think of situations where you have made decisions that show that you were at a different stage than you are now? And if so, what has changed between now and then, right? Do you remember a time where you might have acted more at a stage 2 or stage 3 level, whereas now perhaps you're stage 4 or stage 5? What do you think were the differences between the you of now and the you of then? Give that some thought, and I think you might find it to be pretty thought-provoking and interesting. Well, I hope you've enjoyed the lesson, and I thank you very much for your time.